Welcome, everyone. We are so grateful to have Ashley and Eve here with us today from the Bereaved Families of Ontario in Toronto. And I'm going to stop talking and pass it over to the two of you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Candace, and thank you, everyone. Uh, just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Ashley. I came to BFO, or Bereaved Families of Ontario, Toronto, about 10 years ago when my dad died. And I had gone through many therapists, many therapists, just one after the other, until I found BFO and their support group. And how I describe BFO today is it has saved my life. So I am very honored to be presenting about grief and be able to support BFO. I used to work for them last year. I'm just doing consultations and doing workshops like this. I'm also a social worker, so I have my own therapy practice. And yeah, I thank you for being here, and I hope that we learn a lot from each other. And yeah, I'd like to introduce Eve as well. Eve is our program and volunteer coordinator at BFO.
Hi everyone, I'm Eve. I'm Program and Volunteer Coordinator, as Ashley said. I came to BFO last year as an MSW student. I really wanted to learn more about grief, how to work with others in that journey. It's something that honestly scares me to my core. So it's something I wanted to learn more so for myself, and then also how to help others navigate that and cope and deal, and how to be a good support. And of course, as a social worker, it's very important to do that. Ashley was my supervisor. So I'm here to support and learn from her.
Here's the agenda for today. Then I'll kind of go into who we are and what we do, and talk a little bit about our group guidelines, just to show you like how we actually conduct our groups and how our groups are led by our basically the foundation of our group. And then I want to take a pause and ask what grief looks like to you as a group. And then I will go into some examples of grief, and then anticipatory grief, what that looks like, why we talk about grief, some coping, which is the most important, because the reality is that it's a constant in our lives, no matter where we are, at whatever point we are experiencing grief in many different ways. And then I do have a resource list that I have for you that you can take a look at later whenever you have the time, but just some more resources also from what I've shared, and some additional stuff that you can take a look at after for, for your learning, for your marinating, and, and you can take as you need and leave what you don't, whatever it is. It's hoping that this reaches you and hits you in a place where you feel you're able to connect with what we're sharing today. And the PDF, I think I will be sending to Candace as well, and then that can be shared with everybody. A little bit about us. BFO is a nonprofit. We basically, like no matter where, rephrase, no matter when, how, or who you've lost, we provide environment and resources to help you in your grief journey. Our programs are either one-to-one supports, where our volunteers actually are matched and paired with people who are interested in taking the step into going into a peer support group. And then we also have our 8-week support groups that are happening 3 times a year. We have it spring, fall, and winter. And then we have programming in the summer as well, whether they're grief walks, whether they're art therapy, whether it depends on what the volunteers want to share with the people that are involved with BFO. But we are a community that wants to share and explore grief and to travel the road together. As cheesy as it sounds, but we're walking together, and whether it's the healing is beginning or it's about to happen, regardless, we know that this is it can be a heavy journey, but it doesn't have to be alone. Like I said, we offer the weekly support groups. These are all facilitated by our volunteers and volunteer professionals. So I would count as a volunteer professional, but also there are people who have gone through the program. I've also gone through the program, so I've got a little bit of everything. And they've just kind of hit a point in their life where they want to give back from what they've received from their support groups that they've attended. And they typically are about 8 to 12 people, and it allows for people to really talk about their losses, and it's confidential, it's weekly, and they're closed groups. We do have some drop-ins that are open to the public, but that happens very rarely, but we always have our stuff on our website. And just a little bit of an idea of what our group guidelines are. We ask that all members of the group honor the confidentiality of what they hear and what they share in the session. There is no worse loss. No loss is more or less deserving of support and understanding. We talk a lot about emotions as a natural part of the grief experience. All emotions are welcome. And it's just to be aware of how those expressions come out, and that we as the facilitators will, obviously, if someone is having a really hard time, we want to check in with them to make sure they're okay. And we honor, respect their family, faith, life experiences, social conditions, and cultural influences affect how all people grieve. And each person is responsible for making sure that it's an inclusive environment and that discriminatory comments and language are not tolerated. And whether it's someone significant in your life, or it's from an illness, something sudden, an accidental death, murder, suicide, police brutality, everyone is welcome here, and everyone's individual experiences will be respected. And then we also ask that people share their time equally. And we really encourage silence, actually, because sometimes people need some time to think about things and process. And sometimes people aren't feeling ready. They just want to cry, and that's okay. And that our groups allow for that. And sometimes it can be heavy and difficult to hold. So we ask people to remain present as much as they are, and remembering that everyone's present looks different. Although people must learn to live with their grief, we always ask people to speak from their own experiences and not give advice or things that they're not, that the issues that are raised by other people. But you can always talk about your own grief experiences in the group. I'll take a little pause. And I thought maybe I'd leave it to the group to see if you'd like to put it in the chat or say out loud. What does grief look like to you, and what has it felt like in your life?
I was just going to say, I didn't say before, but welcome, Ashley. Welcome, Eve. Thank you for being here and for having this service, because when you were talking, a lot of this just kind of took me back to our journeys, before transplant, after transplant. Unfortunately, we lose people along the way because everybody doesn't have the success stories that we have. And I think the big thing is, one, everybody has a story to tell that's worth hearing. So that's the same with grief. And then we're all just trying to figure this out. There's no magic formula, one size fits all. We do it the best way that we can. And something that somebody told me a long time ago is, if you share this stuff, nobody can carry it for you. But if you let us know what's going on, then we can carry it with you. And I think that's kind of what you said as well. And as far as what grief is to me, just speaking from personal experience, I lost both my mom and dad back in 2008. a year and a half after I moved to Canada, and that was one of the roughest things I've had to deal with. And it was just like a big black hole for me because I lost my dad in May of 2008. He had issues with his kidneys, and everything just kind of shut down on him. And so I was, of course, shocked when you lose your parent, but I wasn't surprised because my mom had done a good job of letting me know that the end was coming up. The hardest thing I've ever had to do was go back home 5.5 months later to eulogize her because she passed away. She had the same heart condition that I had that made me need a transplant in the first place. And, the doctor said that that's what got her, but they'll never convince me that it was just a broken heart. She and my dad were together since she was 17 years old. She died at 59. And if I can make it to 60, I'll be the first person in my family to ever make it to 60 being diagnosed with the heart condition that killed my mom and her mom, HCM, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And I guess that's, and after she died, like I said, I went in a big black hole for a long time, and am just climbing out of it now. I found that talking about it with other people helps a lot because I carried it around or tried to carry it around by myself for a long time. And that did not do any good for me or my family or anybody else.
That's really good. Go ahead.
So I was gonna say, even amongst our small ACB group, since we've started this group, our team has experienced grief with losing 2 members along the way already in the 3 years that we've been doing this. So it is something that we've known that we've needed to tackle this whole time, but I mean, not that we're shying away from the subject itself. It's just, it requires a lot for us to talk about it openly and speak about it. One of the major things for me is I actually lost my mom back in 2012 to ovarian cancer. And my mom was pretty young at the time. She was 43. And it's been 10 years, and I have, since accepted and come to realize and understand. And like, I celebrate her now when her birthday comes around. I no longer get sad about it. But what actually has been really like hanging over my head now is I'm at the same age now that she was at when she first found out about her ovarian cancer. And then the spiral from when she first found out to when she passed away was only a year and a half, right? So now I'm worried, for a lack of better terminology, on what's going to happen to me and the people that I care about, because we are now at that age.
Chris and Charles, thanks for sharing. Thank you for sharing. For me, grief is like Rogers. When Rogers calls you just to bother you about whatever deal that you didn't ask for. Rogers, Edward is one of our telecommunication companies. So we have Bell and Rogers. They're the big phone TV company. Anyways, that's what I was thinking of a thing to compare it to. They're going to call because you signed up with them for whatever reason, but they keep calling, and you try to ignore it, but they're going to call again because that's just the way it works. Sometimes I take the time to talk to Rogers. There are other times I just pretend like they don't exist, although I'm using their service every day. I have a hard time wrapping my brain around death a lot of the times when it comes up, because you can't get ready for it, right? As people that have waited for transplant, you prepare, and hopefully, you get what you're preparing for in time. And then for all of us here, we got it. So good. But how do you prepare for the next passing? And just, I think, Charles, you kind of alluded to that. Life before transplant and life after transplant, there's a grief aspect to that as well, right? Your old life is no longer, and there's this new life now that you have to adopt, but there's things that I just wish I didn't have to go through, right? Like I still complain about the medication. It's just still a thing that I do. And people remind me, Fadia, don't complain about the medication, like you're here. I'm like, yeah, but I just wish it didn't go this way, right? I wish there was something else I could do to avoid this part of my life. But anyways, I digress. But I have a hard time. And I wouldn't say the word is triggered, but it has that negative connotation. I'm deeply empathetic to other people's pain. So when other people share their stories, I'm reminded often of my stories. When other people are in pain, I'm often reminded of my pain. And I just want to give everybody a hug, right? I just want the pain to go away. So, yeah, I don't even know if what I said made sense, but that's me in a nutshell.
Nah, well, it's a tough meeting to sit in. Thank you all for sharing, and for those who I haven't met, it's a pleasure. I look forward to getting to know you all better. And my condolences to to each of you. Yeah. But I would equate grief to like a broken spirit or a broken picture frame, where regardless, I mean, you can try to pick up the pieces, but it will never be the same. And like I said, recently, I'm in my home office now, and I'm surrounded. I just lost like two brothers, and surrounded by working with kids, surrounded by so many kids that I've lost specifically in the last few years, and it's I'll be honest, if I wasn't a man of faith, I probably would have threw in a towel. If I knew I didn't, the Lord blessed me with a child of late, which renewed my spirit. But it's you just never, it's you don't got no answers. You got to learn how to live without them. And while at the same time, when you're dealing with different situations like we are, I know it created a lot of anxiety in me, because sort of like Charles said, like man, I'm sure he's probably 60, he's at 60 creeps up. I'm sure I can imagine how you feeling, with trying to. So same thing here. It's like, like, I don't know, I was talking to one of my friends earlier he got to go in and get a biopsy on something, but I always say, we say, I mean, why me about the, I mean, it's all you really can say is like, why me, or why them or whatever, but you really don't got no answer. And I mean, you lean on to whatever you have. Me, in my case, like my faith, and, trying to outgive the hurt that I'm feeling, stuff like that. But, it's, it never goes away. You never, like, looking at some of the people, normally I don't pay attention, but now that we're having this subject, I'm looking around, seeing all these people, it's make you almost want to break down again, like as if it just happened. So, but it's part of life, and yeah, 'cause all I can do is just lean onto my faith, and like nowhere. I don't know, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's a part of life, but you know, yeah, it sucks, So yeah.
Thank you all for sharing. I I just want to say, all of you are experts on your life, and you're here because you're reaching out to each other, to lean on each other. Mm. I'm very grateful for all of you for sharing and actually like opening your hearts up. A lot of grief is actually feeling it, feeling the emotions, feeling the restlessness, not sleeping. We have, we tend to call it stugs. It's a sudden, temporary. Oh my God, I can't remember the acronym. You have this sudden emotion that feels like, whether it's 10 years ago, whether it was yesterday, it comes up. It's like a surge of emotion that'll come up for you. And it happens at different times. Sometimes you're brushing your teeth. Sometimes you're at the grocery store. Sometimes you're driving. I was driving back home today and I started crying out of nowhere. I couldn't even, no idea. It just happened. And so it's kind of recognizing that that's a part of it's a part of the process, and it's unavoidable, unfortunately, but it's not unavoidable without being with one another. Okay. Edward, you unmuted. Did you want to say something?
Yes. And like I said, I forgot to mention, which I'm sure everyone can relate to. Not only does it kind of like your life will never be the same, but those around you. Like I know that still talk to my dad to this very day. It's never the same, like, you can't, like I say, even when you're getting better, you can go be around people who's maybe dealing with that same, it's like trauma, grief trauma or whatever. And you could be in a better place, but once you be around them, it could take it right back to, where it all started. And it's just like, and no matter, it could be them, or it could be anyone, or it could be, you go back to, I don't know, go back to your hometown or whatever, it's just so many reminders, and that's something that you can't, it's like, that's why I said it's a lot of like, just a lot of broken pieces. You go this way, you may get cut, you may be okay right where you are, but you go, it's just, I don't know.
Definitely a lot. And um, it's sometimes it's hard to talk to people who haven't experienced grief. Sometimes can imagine that it must be difficult to talk to people outside of this group about what you go through. And so like even with grief, it's like really hard to talk to people who haven't experienced it, or they experienced it in a way that is more like, it's different than how you experience it. Like some people, and we'll go into a little bit more a little later about different types of like how grief kind of manifests itself. But I just wanted to pause to see if anybody else wanted to share before I moved a little forward with some of the grief terms and myths and some of the stuff you've been talking about in picture form. For our next slide, common grief myths that involve, saying that bereaved individuals only need to express their grief in order to resolve it. The intensity of mourning is a testimony to your love for the deceased. That's not true. Grief should be over in a year. Grief declines steadily over time. And I added there at the bottom Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief, because, and I put it as a grief myth because her theory came out in a very particular way for a very particular group of people, but it cannot describe grief in its entirety and how it affects other people in different ways. I want to introduce you to some new grief theories. Maybe they're not so new, but different theories that are a lot more than just 5 stages of grief. that there's a little bit more flexibility, and maybe one will resonate more with you than what you've heard so far about the 5 stages of grief. Moving on to growing around grief, which is really like genuinely the pain of grief doesn't disappear, as many of you shared. It really, you grow around it, and reducing really how it dominates your life more than the grief shrinking over time. And I had a different image, and it was like a ball in a jar, and the ball remains the same, but the jar increases as you increase and grow around your grief. So it's like just like this, you're really growing in different ways. And what we don't talk enough about are the secondary losses that we would experience, right? It's either loss of health, loss of faith, loss of general sense of security, loss of income, loss of a parenting partner, loss of home, loss of health, I already said health, loss of identity. So there's a lot of different things that, and as Tammy had mentioned, like it's sometimes not just about death. There are losses and grief that we feel around many different things. And although BFO typically will work with people after they've lost their loved one, there's all of these secondary losses that have to be talked about, because these are kind of like the strands that connect us to people, to our work, to our livelihood, to our support system, right? Do any of you relate to any of these secondary losses? Do you feel like some of these kind of pop out?
I feel like with transplants, sometimes it's more of the secondary losses than the really obvious ones. Like a lot of friends of mine, when they talk about grief, it's often direct to death, like you talked about. Whereas, growing as a transplant recipient, you go through stages, I feel like, and I always refer to grief as like a wave or like the ocean. Like sometimes it's nice and calm and I can walk and everything is fine and it's beautiful. And then other times you just get hit real hard and it pulls you under. And so I think for like a lot of us transplant patients, we go through phases. Like our diagnosis is a part of grief, and grieving the life that we thought that we were going to have. And then we have to grieve now what our treatments are. Some of us have to go on dialysis, and we have to grieve what that does to our life and what that does to our health. And then, of course, we're very excited when we receive our transplant, because we get that a little bit more of that life back. But there's all of the things that come with that as well. Like Fadia was talking about, our medication, which I don't know anybody who enjoys it, but and then also if somebody receives a transplant from a deceased donor, there's grief there, and grieving the loss of the donor and the loss that the family has had to go through. And then in other situations it is direct grief, as Charles talked about too, and Edward, we do lose a lot of people along the way, and some people have that why me idea of like, why is this happening to me? But I feel like it's reversed for a lot of us transplant patients who are still here, that it's like, why am I still here and they're not? So I think sometimes a lot of us also deal with that kind of like survivor's guilt, that we are still here with a working transplant, and there's friends of ours that have lost theirs or lost their lives, and they're now gone. So I feel like sometimes the secondary losses hit a little bit harder than that direct primary loss, or that direct, death of a person for some of us.
Yeah, amen to everything Candace said. We kind of talked about this stuff before in other conversations, but she hit on a lot of it. And I think the one thing that's jumping out at me from this list of losses here is loss of identity. Because, like you said, for me, it's always been, it starts with diagnosis. And the first thing I felt was different because everybody else is going on with their life. They're bumping along just like I was. But now my life is going to be completely different. And then, like Fadia said, and Candace as well, is the first thing they told me, because before I had any of this transplant stuff, I had a massive stroke. So I have like permanent brain damage. Part of my brain died, and I've had to learn to become a new Charles. And that was the first thing that the cognitive therapist told me was, as corny as it sounds, you got to learn to love yourself. Forget about the old Charles. He is gone. So you got to embrace what you have now and then build on that. And that's, it, kind of like Edward was saying, it's like that person is gone, but everything else is still here. And you got to figure out a way to move forward from that and build upon it. And like you said, growing with the jar, I can see that now. That metaphor makes a lot of sense to me. The grief is there, but your life doesn't have to stop right there. You're still going to go on, hopefully. And you just learn to grow around it. And that gets smaller in comparison, as far as a percentage of how much it takes over your life. So that's it for me.
Yeah, and if I can chime in, it's just secondary losses, primary losses. And a lot, and I would just say, just to add on to what the others have said, the worst part, at least for me anyway, is even when trying to say it without getting too emotional, but no, I'll just stick to my first point. Like you can think about some of the losses, and at least from some of the things that I've lost along the way, like I could never out. It always come back to it. Always like it has like the feeling of that. No matter how much I had to overcome it, which is why I love working with kids, it still still can come up and kind of remind me every day. It's like, okay, you had to leave school earlier, you had to do this, or you lost so and so, and then it'll be like it'll be I'll be reminded by like sports. Like I'm way past my playing days, but whenever I watch football games on Sunday, I'm reminded about, man, I got sick, and I'm like, but how many people am I able to help by being a part of committees? But I'm still like, I want to be on the TV. That should be me, or I should be this executive of this company when the Lord said, I put you over this stuff. Like, all this good stuff that came about it. You're able to be an inspiration. You're able to, like, your life, not greater. No one's life is greater than another, but your life, you're on a path that you're supposed to be on. But at the same time, I know I struggle where I still may be looking at about what I lost. And I believe Candace stated that earlier, I'm still thinking about what I've lost and the idea of what I had, or the idea of what was supposed to be instead of what is. And you can be thankful for what is, but at the same time, lose sight in moments of, of your current blessings, and still be wanting what, it's just, I don't know. That's the easiest way I could say without like getting too like emotional, what I wanted to say originally. But yeah, it's just, you live in a life of unassurity, because still, when someone tell you that, oh, I need another heart, and while you trying to sympathize for them, you kind of feeling bad, like, oh, at the same time, is my heart, or is my liver, am I next, and it's just, like, how can you be there for someone else when you still kind of in this, like, whoa, what I mean, whoa, what was your numbers? You don't want to ask them what was your numbers? Anything I should know? You don't want to ask them right then, but you kind of want to know, you want to know, wow, what happened? So yeah, so sorry for running. Like I said, I switch points in the whole when I actually start talking.
I was going to say to you, brother Edward, I love you. And when you were saying that, it's because you're human. That's why, you want the other stuff, but I know you know it, and I know it, and everybody else on this call, thy will be done. That's why that phrase exists, because we're human. We can make mistakes. There's only one power that doesn't make mistakes. We're on the path that we're supposed to be on, not the one that we wanted to be on. Things happen the way they're supposed to happen, usually when they're supposed to happen. So it's not up to us. You gotta keep that faith. And I know it's hard, but that's what keeps me going. Not
And
what I want, not my will, thy will. So
I was just about to make that statement, Charles. It's not our will, but thine be done. It's not up to us. There's a higher power, and we just have to just let go and let God. That's it.
that's it, Tamara. That's it.
That's it.
The one that stands out to me is loss of dreams for future. Again, I go back to being prepared and planning, and I'm an educator, so I that's my life. Plan to make sure that you're able to see the the progress, right? Or you can see that that specific skill has been learned, or whatever concept has been learned. And I just recently have taken the time to really go back to what I wanted to do before transplant. And I've definitely put that, in the back, in the furthest burner on the stove, as far as I could put it, because I, like it was mentioned before, not sure how much time I have. So I'm still trying to wrap my brain around, okay, well, I can't control everything. There are things that I can control, but maybe my dreams may have to be shifted a little bit, or they need to be molded a little bit, so that first of all, that I can achieve them. I've given up on being a billionaire, because that's not gonna happen. But there's other things that I can work on. So it's just like the wave that you mentioned, Candace, right? There are days I'm like, yes, I can do this. There's other days I'm like, this is never going to happen, because first of all, I need time, and I don't know if time is on my side. But that's the one that I is very close to my heart right now.
You guys are firing me up, and until somebody tells me to shut up, I'm just going to keep commenting on everything everybody says. But Fadi, you hit it on the head. The thing I had to do was to figure out that dreams don't have to be lost. They just have to be altered. You could still get it. You just have to go at it another way. It doesn't have to be gone for good. And that all goes back to perspective, which is based upon your experiences. One of the things that with grief that actually, when you were talking, I said that this kind of parallels our journey as transplant recipients is or somebody else said this too. We're all going to wind up in the same place at the end of this journey. Nobody gets out of this alive. We're all going to pass away at some point. But just like that with transplants, we come from all walks of life. But then once you get your transplant, we're kind of all walking the same journey, and we're walking it together. So with this whole grief thing, that's the way I look at it as well.
And Charles, I'm gonna be like you, because this conversation gonna hop on.
Go ahead.
We don't
And
take up too much time. Sorry, good.
No, I'm gonna interject. I don't know if you're done, but it's like we have to remember. I think it's hard to remember in the moment that we're not alone.
Yes.
Right? Amy, you're not alone. Right?
No, you
And
got us. We're just a
yeah,
phone call away.
yes. And dialysis is very much a individual sport, right? But just like you said, Charles, right, we're all on the same journey, and I would even say that we're all like, regardless of transplant or not, we are all on that same journey.
Mhm.
We're all living this life the best way we know. We know how, the best way we can, and we do have each other.
Mhm.
And I know, again, it's easy to feel like it's just happening here and it's just happening to me, and it's, no one else feels, no one will understand. But we're here, right? We are here. We do understand. And the burden that you're carrying, you can share it with others, because we want to support you, right? We want to support each other.
Absolutely. We may not have any answers, but we're all pretty good at listening. And sometimes it just helps to talk.
So, and what I wanted to say was just basically like the loss of that on here, loss of identity. What is it? The loss of I don't know what it will fall under, but you still got to live in a world while we're still living with this, right? You still got to live in a world of people who not everyone is compassionate, not everyone is understanding, not everyone has been through, nor does, it's good. Some people do not care, like that's one thing that really got me when I got involved with working in the youth, which I still do. Is like I know a lot of these children. I've been trying to encourage a lot of these kids, male and female, about dating. Like they're not gonna like me because I'm sick and I'm that, and I'm like, and I'm trying to tell them something that, like, no, you gotta have confidence. If you want to date her, go up there, like you gotta know inside you, like, you're special. Don't worry about all that stuff. Or females, like, I got scars and stuff. No guy gonna want me, or and it's just. And the sad part is, some people are. I mean, that may be the case, just like anything in life. But I'm like, do not. I try to turn their their mindset on their situation, go from from think it of as a superpower instead of a negative. But the sad part, in the world, it does matter. I mean, like, I remember before I ever started my various my businesses and stuff. If I wanted to get a job, they're not going to let me get a job to provide for my family because, oh, I didn't have these credentials. They didn't care. I mean, they didn't care that I was on par to graduating at that time, but I got sick. But now I still need a job to provide for my family. But do you got this and that? No, you can't get this job. So that means I can't provide for my family. So now I got to go build, which took a long time. Now I got to go, and that's the real world. They don't care. I mean, a lot of people, you may get some people to who may give you opportunity, but you still live in the real world. So how can you balance a lot of these losses and balance the real world versus at the same time still be, without losing your confidence, loss of identity, and so on and so forth. So I don't know.
Good questions. Good questions. Definitely want to get into like the coping in a little bit, but I wanted to take a pause. So there's different kinds of grieving styles. Some people will be more emotion, feeling based. You're often drawn to support groups like this, and you feel like expressing really helps you process. And then there are others who really have more cognitive, like they really have to think it out and really think of it as thoughts, or they they feel it physically in their bodies. Sometimes when you feel like a heaviness, you feel pain, and so it can be a little bit of both. It can be either intuitive grief or instrumental grief. And a little bit more here to kind of give you a little bit of an idea. It's, feelings are very intensely experienced, and expressions like crying and really allowing time to feel the emotions, feel the grief, having, a hard time sleeping, concentrating, really feeling disoriented, and even just feeling the physical exhaustion from that, like feeling the emotions immensely. And then like the other side can be, you more or less like your thinking is more powerful. You feel more like, okay, how do I problem solve right now? Like, okay, what do I need to plan in my life? What do I need to, figure out in terms of my next steps? Or how do I make sure that I keep my energy high and I keep going and I keep going, and you're on this hamster wheel and you're not stopping. Nope, grief's not going to stop me today. And what I found in my work as a therapist, but also with grief and working with grievers, is this oscillation, right? The dual process of coping with bereavement is like you kind of go between like loss oriented to restoration oriented, where you're it's not linear, right? It's not linear. You could be fine one day and the next day you are on your bed, you can't get up. And so it's recognizing that, as I said before, like the 5 stages of grief, this is looking beyond that a little bit, in the sense that you're looking beyond, really looking at the oscillation and the movement, right? Like, because as you know, grief is just not a one-time thing. It happens over and over in different ways in your life, right? It might be your own grief, it might be other people's grief, the world's grief, right? Like, we are in a time, and the amount of times I've been on the floor sobbing, I cannot tell you. So it's like looking at, remembering and imagining. Basically, it's you have moments of confronting loss, and then you have moments of kind of moving through life again. So it's like a little bit of I call it a dance. This is calling it oscillation, but it could be a fan, the fan that kind of moves from back and forth and kind of oscillates. But really, like, if there's anything you take from this dual process model of grief, is that you experience grief in doses, and that it's okay to do that. And at times you'll face your loss head on, and other times you'll focus on like practical life needs and tasks, because you don't have a choice. You have to keep moving. You have to go to work, or you have to get things done in order to function. And you have to take care of your family. Like, these are real things that you kind of go in back and forth. And sometimes it's respite, and sometimes it's feeling. And so this is like one of the one of the models that I personally really connect with, and I wanted to share that with you. And then this is something that I really like. I found it, I don't know where, social media somewhere. I stole it. I don't know who made it, so I can't even say, I can't give credit to who the credit deserves, but it's a great graphic. Like, a little bit of what we've talked about already, right? Like, things that we grieve could be the loss of loved ones, loss of a pet, a loss of a relationship, like a breakup or a divorce or death. But we also can grieve major life transitions, and even breaking up with our friends, or losing a job, or switching careers, a diagnosis, moving to a new location. So it's really just like, grief is a very broad thing, and it's something that we all experience. It's how we, how we personally deal with it based on the amount of support that we have. Because sometimes there are people who don't have the support that's here. I didn't have support until I had BFO, and that was 10 years ago. And I see the growth and the connection that all of you have together. And I think that will continue to grow. And I think it's very powerful that our grief, when it is acknowledged, we have a safe and a brave place to be who we are and grieve as we are. And this is another one that I really like. Also, don't know who made it, but I'm very grateful. But you know, the 5 stages of grief, or the 5 stages as Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, but really the reality is that it is a very, even the line, you can't even see the line's non-existent, because you know, it's just, there's so many things that we go through every single day, and one day is too freaking long. Like so I just kind of go moment to moment, you know, the morning, the afternoon, the evening, nighttime, you know, like it's doing the best that you can as you can. And something that I wanted to talk about a little bit was like symptoms of grief. And, you know, sometimes you might feel shock. And these are probably things you felt already, right? It's just a repetition of your own experiences, right? Like guilt and anger, numbness, feeling abandoned, sadness, depression, shock. Sorry, I'm feeling it as I'm saying it. And some of the physical symptoms of grief could be like you're actually like super energized, like, oh, I can get all my chores done in one day. More power to you. Like amazing, amazing. But sometimes it's like crying, you're like sobbing your eyes out. Other times it's that, again, the aches and the pains. Sometimes you don't feel like eating. Sometimes you eat a lot. Sometimes you have fatigue and difficulty sleeping, right? Like this is very normal feelings of grief that create, it's more for like an awareness to like be aware, like these are normal feelings that you will feel, because the problem, what I found in society is like grief is not very, you know, it's not talked about. And feeling emotions or feeling that vulnerability of losing someone, or like feeling grief, is very invalidated by a lot of society. And so our hope is that we keep talking about grief and we keep bringing it to light. Like, no, this is real, and this is a part of the experience of grief. Go ahead, Fatima.
I was going to say, in our ACB communities, especially, we don't give enough space for that. It may be a sign of weakness, it may be a sign of lack of faith. I've heard that one before. We often want to, I'm also a person of faith, but we often forget the person in the grieving process, and we kind of impose, you know, like I remember my husband and I, we lost our firstborn, and someone said, you know, this like right away, like maybe a couple hours or the next day, it's like, oh, this is God's plan. And I was just like, I don't know, what are you, right? Like they mean well, the intention is, you know, it comes from a good place, but we don't give people the space and the time to just breathe through the thing and feel the thing and give support. And it's like, okay, well, it's been 5 months now. Okay, let's, you know, like let's snap back. Or it's been a couple days, let's snap back. So I feel like even in our own community, in the Black community, we need to encourage those conversations so that we can heal better and offer long lasting support for one another when we do go through these shocking moments or these traumatic moments.
There's like, I don't believe we're meant to heal alone. I believe we're meant to heal in community. And that's what's really lacking in North America, truly. I mean, it's kind of, you know, in develop. Anyway, I'm not going to go into a rant. Go ahead, Tammy.
And you know, one more thing. What During our process of grieving, we often blame God. We're like, where are you when we need you? Like, why did you let this happen to me? Like, you said you were here to take care. Why would you impose this hurt and this pain? And you're supposed to be taking care of me, and you know, um, but I can say that honestly, throughout all of everything that's happened or has been happening, my husband and I too, we've lost our firstborn, and like with the dialysis, with the heart and the kidney and everything that's going on, I can say that I have never like questioned why are you doing this to me? Why did you let this happen to me? But you know, everybody is different, like, but I know a lot of people who have gone through a lot of things, and they do blame it all on God, like, you don't love me. You said you won't put me through certain things. Why am I feeling so much pain? Why did you allow this? You stood there and watched this happen to me because you know everything that's going on, and you let it happen to me. So maybe that's their way of dealing with their grief. Yeah.
No, I was mad at God for taking my dad. He's very mad.
Pardon me?
I know I was really mad at God when my dad first died.
Mm.
Very, very mad. I was like, why did you take him? Because I don't have a good relationship with my mom. So I was really just like, you took the wrong person. Why? And I was very angry at that time, like I just genuinely like I love my mom, but like it is challenging. And so I do understand like that loss of faith is really hard, and everyone kind of just expects you to like get over it, like, go back on with life. And or you're feeling sad, it's okay. Go for a walk. You want to punch him in the face. You're like, what?
I know.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But it's always remembering that, like, yourself best, and you know how your healing will be and what you need. And that's always what when you like, I'm going off topic, so I'm gonna stick to the topic because I get very sidetracked. And as I told Candace, like, thankfully I have notes and presentation because I will go off on another tangent. Um, but yeah, like it's you know I'm really like, I get it. Like, I'm from India actually, and so my family, we've experienced a lot of loss, and we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. Everybody just, puts everything in their heart, and then it comes out in like anger, and like, you said this and da 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 da, or okay, just go to church and that's gonna solve everything. And or it's like, well, we have to move on. That's what they would want. And so they don't allow that time, even if it's that time, it has to be your time. It has to be the time that you grieve. And everyone can grieve differently, and everyone can have their different times, but it's making sure that you're able to grieve that feels right to you, and being able to share that in a space where you are heard and you are valued, and that you are not spoken over or given advice that you're just not ready to do at the moment. Like, I had someone walk up to me at my grandfather's funeral, and it was three months after my dad had died, and they were like, who's gonna marry you off? And my grandfather is lying right there, and I was just like, what? And so it's like people, well-meaning, but sometimes, they don't know what to say. And I feel something that we learn in our groups is like silence is golden. Sometimes it's about that hug. It's about just like a pat on the shoulder, or holding someone's hand, or like bringing them food, or, having those relations in the way that you feel ready to accept. And even if you're not ready to accept it, it's being able to give those boundaries to be like, you know what, I'm not ready for that now, but thank you, respectfully. Because people do take offense. I do know. I have learned in my own experience. But yeah, like I'm hoping the symptoms of grief kind of resonated, and that it affirmed, like these are things that you felt before, and that this is a very normal part of the grieving process, is to feel these like emotional and physical symptoms of grief. And then we have anticipatory grief, which is something that many of you may have already felt or are feeling consistently. And that's like that impending loss, or not just impending death, but impending anything that you just don't know what's ahead, but something's ahead. And I mean, the picture itself has some tips on how to deal with it, but there's also, like really recognizing and making sure you're acknowledging those feelings, getting the support that you need, saying what you need to say. So I kind of liked a little bit of those as well. But what I wanted to also share was like kind of like what happens when grief is unresolved. And this is the research is very stark. They're doing a lot more research on grief and like the impacts of grief. And a lot of unresolved grief can really lead to mental health issues, emotional isolation, feeling unable to function on a daily basis, lower, like not being able to go to work, not being able to go to school. Like, and there were more, I just couldn't fit them all onto the screen, but like really like this is so important to talk about, and it's so important to feel, so that as you move through those symptoms of grief, that you're allowing the space to feel them, because when they start to suppress, some of these issues start to compound. And then something to think about, like when you may need more support, and it's when that stuff starts to compound a lot more, it's kind of like developing chronic physical symptoms, like, whether it's like sleeping and you're not sleeping, and then you're not sleeping for a week, and then you're not sleeping for a month, and then you're not sleeping, like that impacts your body in a huge way. And, whether it's self-medicating, or not having good relations with others, or not really enjoying the things that you used to enjoy. So it's just like thinking about, the impacts of grief that aren't really talked about. And I want to like put them out into like, it's like, here, grief is here, and we need to talk about it. And I know like people talk about like self-care, and I to each their own. Like self-care can look very different for each person, but I wanted to take a pause here to kind of reflect a little bit about what self-care looks like for you, because I can't take any bubble baths. I don't have a tub, so clearly like I'm not gonna relate to this, but it's, what kind of forms of self-care do you use already, and what are some of these questions, whatever is really resonating for you. I'd love to hear from you all what you're feeling like. Are my self-care activities adding to my life? Or are they taking away from my life? And what are my warning signs when I'm over capacity? Because you all have your own and you all know yourselves better than any of us, right? I just want to take a pause. And you can say it out loud or you can put it in the chat as well.
I'm gonna share is my self-care additive or subtractive? I love social media and I tend to scroll and I'm like, oh, self-care. But it's very easy. The line is so thin that you can easily, Fadia can easily fall into the I'm avoiding, don't want to talk to anybody, I don't want to think. And it's probably 3 hours later that I'm realizing, okay, I'm really anxious, or okay, I'm really overwhelmed right now. Oh, okay, because I'm not even registering what I'm watching. It's just nonsense and it's just my hand going through and I'm tired, but after a while, it takes me a while to realize what I'm doing. So I would say, well, for me, I know social media is not it. So I've recognized that. And what I love doing is moving. So moving, usually dancing. Don't ask me to run nowhere. Those days are gone. Yeah, I was a track star in high school, but done. But I can dance, right? Dancing at home, Zumba, soca size, whatever movement is part of what I use to take care of myself. Yeah, to take care of myself.
I really like that, Fadia. I'm with you there. I have two B's. I do boxing and baking. So depending on what form I'm in, if I'm in my angry zone, I just sometimes you gotta hit something. So having a boxing bag makes sure that you're not like a 15-year-old teenager needing to fix your drywall anymore. So having a boxing bag is really cathartic, but also I guess with hands as well, when you're baking something, you're using your hands, you're thinking, you're outside of those thoughts of your grief, and you're able to make something that generally turns out beautiful or delicious most of the time. And then you get that reward of eating something yummy that you just made. So those are my two. If I'm feeling angry, hit something. If I'm feeling sad, make something and then eat something delicious to make me feel better.
Well, I would say mine is food. I enjoy cooking, enjoy it a lot. It just distracts me from everything. And when I can cook, I wallow in self-pity. I just sit there and I watch the TV, and sometimes the TV turns off and I doesn't even know it's off, but I just watch TV, cook. Now my leg is, I can't stand to prepare food, but I sit at the table and I'll cut up whatever and I'll pass it on to somebody else. That's still something, but if I'm doing nothing, then I'm watching TV and drifting off and just gone into my mind, my head. Yeah.
I'll go. They say, what forms of self-care do you use? I use, I say, addition and subtraction, and it depends. However, what I feel I'm in need of at that particular point. I know now, like most recently, I've been, like I said, separating myself from a lot of things that no longer, that no longer, or currently, should I say, in this season of my life, that takes away my peace or stresses me out, even if it's good, even if it's something that I enjoy. But in this particular point in my life, like I said, I'm really trying to find my peace. Sometimes I feel like, me personally, I've, as a giver, sometimes givers, you can give so much of yourself to the point there's nothing left and you don't even know who you are no more. So definitely just trying to be more intentional with my time, more intentional with not being, continue to be selfless, or yeah, continue to be selfless, but not selfish. So I've removed myself from a lot of different, just so much work, things that I was involved in, and trying to put that more time on. Like I said, I've been looking at boats, so I've been trying to. I love water. I love tranquility. So I've been going to look at boats and looking at different lakes and planning to get more on the water, fish more, and also be to take my nieces and nephews, my brothers that I've lost. Also, just ironically, we've been talking about grief, so some things that's been helping me with my grieving process that I've been going through a lot, at least over the last year, is just thinking a lot about legacy. That's really what that's been like the word, just thinking about a lot about legacy and thinking about ways that I never fear dying. Seeing my brother lying there, 35 years old, lying in that coffin, daughter crying, saying I want my daddy. Can't do nothing about it. Lower him down, and I'm sure you all went through funerals and just saying, I want my daddy, I want my daddy. And of course, you think about, wow, that could be me at any time. But one thing I thought about was, I don't fear dying, but I fear dying without being remembered, and also for them. So I said I want to continue to do things in my life that helps me leave a legacy, rather in my nieces and nephews' lives, or continue with the children, trying to plant those seeds so that they too can continue to grow up and think, why not me, to what they can become in spite of, no matter what they may go through in life. So, or what they already gone through. So yeah, really trying to instill in them that why not me mindset. So I've been doing a lot of work with my company uh towards that. So that's two assets subtraction. And also just, I guess my last one would be, yeah, just doing, I guess it goes to the first, doing what makes me happy, reading, just whatever, and not overwhelming myself, not feeling the need to overwhelm myself, and also allowing others to overwhelm you. So, not allowing others, yeah, helping others, but not allowing too much. A lot of people, I got a lot of people that put a lot of stuff on me, and just trying to, shake it off, trying to get loose and, get to know myself, get to know who I am in this new phase of life, father, different griefs, all the different things we got to go through. Who am I now? Not who I was back then, or who I thought I was in the eyes of people, but who am I? Look at myself, like, who am I and who am I now at this age, versus stuff like that. So really trying to get to know myself again, because I truly think I lost myself in a mixed up, trying to give so much to others. So yeah, that would be mine, I would say. And to say, what are my warning signs when I'm just exhausted mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I don't have nothing else to give. I got kind of scared. As much as I love my my charity, which I've been doing 15 years, 16 years. As much as I love, I was just burnt out. I'm like, I don't want to help nobody, please, like, because ain't nobody helping me. Who's with me when tears come down my eyes? I can't, I don't know how to deal with all this stuff. Who is with me? Joining all these committees, people pulling so much on me. I like, who is really, who is really checking on you. So it's kind of like I said, I got to separate yourself, because sometimes you got to be like this. worry about yourself more. And that's so yeah, I've been doing a lot of that and just really trying to focus on my own mental health and spiritual health and yeah, physical health. So yeah, that's it. And I appreciate you. This is awesome. Like I said, this is awesome. This is like therapy for me. Like this is like therapy tuning into this. When they said an hour and a half meeting, I'm tired on all this, but I'm thankful that I really did hop on because it's definitely been like therapy just thinking through all this stuff. So
All right, I guess that leaves me. And as usual, when we have these conversations, then what somebody says triggers something in me to add on to the conversation. And what Edward said, two things. We'll start with the last thing he said, which is therapy. And this is always, like group therapy, just being part of this group. I'm so thankful that we have each other, so that that you're not alone and you can come in here and talk with an open heart. And I think the biggest thing is, everybody's afraid of being judged. There's no judgment here. It's just us talking about, what's happened to us. So thank you for that. And that is kind of, I guess, my latest coping thing is I have a conversation with my best friend on God's green earth pretty much every Sunday morning. We try to have it. He keeps me in touch with what's going on back home. We've known each other since I was 11 years old. And growing up, my dad told me if there's one person in this world that you can really call or a true friend, then you've been blessed. And I was doubly blessed. I had my best friend Matt and my best friend Paul. We're still friends to this day. So being able to talk to them, really helps. The one thing that has from when I was a kid is a long walk in the woods. Back home, in Georgia, the weather was good. I could go and walk out in the trees by myself. I'm smelling that dirt, and there's nothing better than that. But now, mobility issues, we got a winter weather, advisory. So I can not going outside, but I just take a long walk in the hallway, and I have my thoughts and I can talk to myself and all that kind of stuff going on. Another thing that has helped me along was for years, I wrote about my experiences, and put it online in a blog. So it did two things. One, for me, it got all the craziness kind of out of my head onto the electronic page. So I would be ready to, deal with whatever the next thing came up with. And then I put it out there so anybody with internet access could see that they're not alone. They're not different. If they have these kind of experiences or thoughts or whatever, then that's there. And something, when you showed that slide that had kind of the oscillating thing, what I say is one day at a time, one obstacle at a time, because you never know what's going to happen today. You don't even know if you're going to get tomorrow. So you deal with whatever's in front of you and you do the best that you can, And then I think the last thing that Edward said about legacy, I've thought about that a lot, is, when I'm gone, the only thing that we really leave that truly lasts are the memories of the people that knew us. And so I want somebody to say, hey, you get a chance to know Charles Cook, but let me tell you a story. This is what this guy was like, and that's it. And I think that's the best that we can do. And like Edward said, thank you, for having this, tonight, for you guys coming and talking to us. And I think this is the best thing that you can do is talk about this stuff, and you find or create a space where you can open up and talk about it because we're all going through it. Just nobody wants to talk about it, and I haven't been shy for many years of being the first one to open my mouth, to start it off. So thanks for letting me talk, and I'll be quiet now.
Thank you for sharing. It's been such an honor, and I thought I would just like put this up because you've already talked about a lot of these, so I won't keep it on. You can look at it later, but like just different times of different ways of coping with grief, like making time for that introspection and the reflection, expressing your feelings. And Stugs, though, I was like, I know I put Stugs in the presentation somewhere. I have to figure it out. What is this word? Sudden temporary upsurges of grief. Very bad at acronyms, but sudden temporary upsurges of grief are like moments where you feel these painful memories when it's an anniversary, when it's a holiday, when it's important milestones, like my dad will never walk me down the aisle kind of thing. Like these are things that kind of bring up emotion in us that we cope with, not and we live with. It's not meant to be. And I like the first sentence, like, there are no steps, tasks, or method that could ever tell you how to get over or let go or resolve your grief, right? It's something that you move through, and being able to do that in community is even better. And I hope that more and more people join our groups and start talking about it and feel together, and we won't be the same. And what makes me really happy is like, let people help you. Because sometimes we feel like we have to take it on ourselves, and I like that. And before we go, I want to just share this window of tolerance. I don't know if any of you have seen this or heard about this before. It's something that therapists like myself use in my therapy sessions, but it's basically talking about how our bodies can feel. Actually, I just wanted to pause. Has anyone heard about this before I go into a spiel about it? Okay. Okay.
No, never heard about it, but looking at it, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, makes sense.
So it's basically like our window of tolerance is different states that can affect us, right? And so what is missing from this specific thing, I had a different image and now I can't remember. There was in between these was dysregulation. And so for hypoarousal and hyperarousal, there's that moment or there's moments of dysregulation that can happen. And so it's like, it's kind of like if you can imagine like a shrinking and an expanding. Sometimes your window of tolerance will shrink when you're really stressed, when you have experienced too much going on. And then sometimes it expands when we add things to our life, like going on those nature walks, or being able to come to group, or to work with children, keep doing what you're doing, being able to cook. Like those are things that can help expand your window of tolerance, because it's your sense of safety and kind of where you feel like you're the most regulated. So regulated doesn't mean like joy, happy, joy, right? It's like, I don't know if you've seen Inside Out, the movie Inside Out. You know how like joy is like, we have to be happy all the time. It's not realistic. Let's be honest, right? Like, and then she starts to learn that sadness also has a role in sadness, anger, disgust. Everybody's involved, right? They're all there for a reason in headquarters. So I love animation. So I just, I'm an adult that loves animation a little bit. But the window of tolerance is kind of like a river, right? You're floating down this river. When it shrinks, things tend to speed up. You travel faster, and you're just like kind of like the wild rapids. You're just like kind of things become overwhelming. You have a hard time, either you feel like helpless, and there you will find, and I will share another. I have another resource in the resource page with a little bit more of a detailed thing of window of tolerance, just to kind of give a better example. But sometimes like that river, when it expands, you slow down, right? Then it becomes less of a raging river and more of like a still lake, because it expands. And that's when you slow down, and when you feel a sense of, and you can't see my hands, I'm like, you feel a sense of safety and calm. But it's like normal for you to kind of go in those waves, right? And you can feel, and for myself, like I tend to become more immobilized, like I shut down and I'm less like I can't function. Whereas other people are like, I'm ready, like they're ready to like fight someone, they're ready to like run, like I need to exert some energy, and they're just like moving, and they're like on this hamster wheel. And then the rest, like, or you're so it's trying to find that middle ground to help expand that window of tolerance, where you feel engaged with others, you feel like you're growing, and that place of dysregulation, which is missing from this picture, is kind of when that question where it asks like, what are your warning signs? That's why I wanted to kind of bring up that question, is like, when your warning signs are hitting up, that's the dysregulation. That's when you're either kind of shutting down completely, or you're like gearing up for something. I don't know what it is. It could be like working 60 hours or something that's like beyond your capacity, but you're just pushing yourself to be active, and you're not taking the pause. And that's what the window of tolerance is meant to be, is to help you come back to yourself, come back to your body. And yeah. This is the resource page. Please check out all, I'm my clients will attest that like they all get resources after every session. It's something that I promise. So I'm also sharing the resources here. There's a little bit about BFO. There's also some good articles that I've used to kind of put into the presentation, but also some really good reason in terms of like support, like Gerstein Center. It's 24 hours. They're there to support you and talk to you if you need someone and you're awake at like 4 a.m. and you can't call anyone. So it's kind of like a of crisis support, to talk to someone if you feel like you need to talk things out. And yeah, some blogs and window of tolerance and all that. But I will end here, stop sharing, and look at all your beautiful faces. Okay.
Is it possible to have the presentation as well? Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will send it to Candace.
Hey, Ashley, I might have missed the front end, but what got you into, how long have you been doing all this, and what got you, yeah, what sparked your interest in doing what you're doing?
Oh no, Edward. um I came into grief work a little late in the game. I think I came to BFO 10 years ago, but I'd been losing people from before that. Since I was a kid, I lost like a friend of mine at age 10, and then it just kept going. I was just always at funerals. I was always losing people. My dad was just like just the rug came out of under. I couldn't function. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. And I was like, what is happening? I've been able to manage my grief before. It was like, it was quite difficult. But grief work, I only came to work for BFO last year. And I mean, I've always had grief on my mind when I did work. Like I've worked in women's shelters. I have worked in a construction company, working with different, working with people who've been incarcerated, working with people so I've had a very eclectic life, but lots of loss that I never really had the community for. And so, and then I just started my private practice recently. It's been like 2 years. I've finally been like, no, I want to do like one-on-one counseling. I feel like that's where my heart lies. And so it's been a bit of a journey of avoiding grief, confronting grief, accepting grief. And and also like I hate public speaking. So like I've worked through that. That's been a huge journey as well. Like I never thought I could give workshops, and I had people like, oh, you should workshop often. Like, that's you're fine. And I'm like inside my whole body feels like I'm dying. Like but this has been a really great group, and I felt really connected with all of you because you've been vulnerable and you've shared essence. It's not even everything, right? Like I know you've been meeting longer than I have been. We just joined at 6 p.m. today. Like you've been meeting from time, and so it's
Yeah, and I just have one quick comment for you as well. how do this is something I've been personally struggle with, especially of late. How do you still, as someone who's went through so much grief, right, over your life, is to be able to start this company, and so I assume you do it every day since it's your company. How do you still balance out not staying in your personal grief, balancing other people's griefs without getting so overwhelmed? Because I know me personally, I mean, like I said, this even with transplants, I like sort of get away from outside of giving back, and like I said, I really cut back. I'm on this committee and another and a couple others that I'm falling off of. But other than that, I don't even want to, I don't even introduce myself as a transplant patient. I don't want to think about it. And it took me some years to get to that point, but don't ask me. I'm kind of, but it's like I just got overwhelmed. I got sort of burnt out. I'm not trying to hear about that stuff every day. The business side, everything out of that. How do you balance without staying? How do you get away from your own grief and
Well,
trauma when you're doing it as a job, should I say? Sorry for
no,
the long-winded question again.
no, it's not. I don't. I've like stopped trying to run away from it. I think I feel it. I felt it as you all were speaking. I feel it when I talk about my dad. I feel it when I talk about my friend. My dad was actually a transplant, not a recipient. He didn't make it that long, but like I've come to learn, and I think BFO has allowed that. Like, because I think I was suppressing it for many years. I've had multiple burnouts, not just one, just multiple burnouts. But it's also recognizing, like, I believe our that jar, it grows. And so the grief is always there, but the jar grows, and it grows with our boundaries. It grows with our compassion for ourselves, and it grows with actually being able to express grief in a safe place. And Eve, I don't know if you have anything to add in terms of grief. I feel like I've been talking a lot, but BFO, like, I mean, BFO has been around for, I don't like 1960, 70. Yeah. So we've had, different EDs, and it's been around as a means to keep the conversation going. And I think there should be, I mean, there are multiple BFOs as well. There's like 11 across Ontario in different parts of, it's north, south, everywhere. And but personally, like I don't even know if I'm answering your question. It's just like talking.
You're fine.
But yeah, it's how to cope is like, incorporate like the last page, and I'll go back to this page again. It's like coping with grief. It's like a lot of these things I put off for a long time. And when I started to face things a lot more and actually sit in the feelings and allow those feelings to actually exist and not suppress them, like it like becomes a part of you, and it becomes how you relate to the people that you work with, the people that you love, the people that you haven't met yet.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
If we wanted to volunteer, how would we go about it? It won't be now. It's report card season. I can't think straight about anything else. But yeah, in the future, how like do we just contact you or go on a website?
You can contact me. You can send me an email. I'll write it in the group chat. And I will just let you know about the training. We try to run about like 4 to 5 trainings a year. for volunteers. It normally consists of, it's about like a 6 to 8 week training, either meeting like once a week or twice a week. But I personally think it's a really engaging and interesting training, and you get to meet others. But yeah, so it's that. And then once you're a volunteer, you can facilitate one-to-ones and run groups. So yeah, I'll write my email here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Our school just experienced a death. The lady who passed was very involved at the school and also happened to be one of my good friends, my good high school friend. So coming back, so she passed on the 22nd of December. So returning back from the holidays, like it was, I didn't think I was going to feel how I was feeling, but I was not doing well. But the school as well is not doing well. But again, because it's report card season, we're just, go, 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 go. And yeah, I'm trying to find a way to create spaces and make sure that we have support for the students, for the teachers, and the community at large.
Yeah, we've done trainings with like within schools or within just like little organizations or companies. So we can definitely just send me an email and we can definitely chat and figure something out.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Wonderful. Well, if anyone has any other questions, you can feel free to type them in the chat, or if you want to speak directly to Ashley or Eve, I can also connect you offline as well. And once we get the slides from this presentation, I will send them to everybody so that you have them. And then we'll have this conversation offline. I'll send you guys an email just to discuss whether we want to just include Ashley's part, and I can edit out our conversations if you feel more comfortable that way, or if you think it would be helpful for viewers to see what our conversation was tonight. So I'm not going to ask you to answer that now. Think about it, and I'll send everybody an email in the next day or two, and we can talk about how comfortable we feel with putting some of the information up on the channel. The other thing we can do is we can put Ashley's slides up on the channel so that the slides are available if you'd prefer that as well. So think about it. Think what you think would be best for the audience and what would be best for you and your comfort level as well. But thank you so much for taking the extra time tonight. All of you are amazing. And Ashley and Eve, thank you so much for being here tonight and presenting to us and giving us some skills to help, because we all go through this and we are all actively going through our grief process. And so we're very grateful to have you guys here to help us through this. So thank you so much. And have a wonderful night, everyone. We will connect soon.
Good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Be well, everyone.
You too.